but we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in a secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in a secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. It is Sunday afternoon. Well, it's Sunday afternoon for me. Wherever it is for you, it's sometime in the world. And we're going to do some Q&A. Everybody still enjoying the new desk? Wouldn't be a live stream if I didn't start with a discussion about my new desk. Still clean. Still not covered in crap. So far, so good. How are y'all doing? Welcome to the stream. Okay, good. We're good. We're good. Speedy Turtle FPV is here. Well, a whole lot of people are here. Welcome. I'm glad you guys are here. We're going to be answering... Yeah, desk. What did you think I said? We're going to be answering your questions and just talking about FPV for a couple hours. It is not quite... It was a beautiful week. Lots of sunny days. It is now cloudy. It's not raining, but it's cloudy. So I don't feel so bad about being here instead of being out flying. Carlos Roberto says, Boa tarde. Is it tarde or tarde? It depends on if you're from Rio. Or Portugal. Why is a Jumper T12 Pro stuck on download VTX table in Lewis scripts? Mark Webster FPV. Very good question. I don't know the answer to that, but you're not the first person to have asked me that recently. When Betaflight Lewis script first connects to the flight controller, it tries to download the VTX table so that it can know what video transmitter settings you have. And sometimes it hangs on downloading table. And I don't know the answer to why it does that. There you go. What keyboard am I running? Cycling Mikey wants to know. It is the Ducky 1. It's the Ducky 1S. It's a pretty good keyboard. I like it. Anyway, with cherry browns. I get so many questions about my keyboard. Go figure. It is mechanical, Cycling Mikey. Browns, the most boring of switches. There's nothing cool about browns. The same kind of person who runs cherry browns, you know, wears Dockers, and you know, there's nothing sexy or cool about. Hey, what mechanical switch do you run? I'm a gamer. I run reds. Oh yeah, what do you run? Oh, I'm a programmer. I run blues. Oh, what switch do you run? I have a mechanical keyboard. They're browns. Oh man, it's not wireless. No, it's not wireless. Fabio, you should really be a moderator too. Just so you could just see you in blue. Fabio Pensera in the chat is my video editor. Thank you for coming out, Fabio. I'm sure you have better things to do on a Sunday, but there you go. Reds. I didn't find reds to be very good for typing. I tried. Let me be really clear. I tried like 5 other keyboard switches before I settled on browns, because when I looked up like what keyboard switch should I try, everybody was like, and then you know, browns. Most people like browns. And I was like, I'm not most people. I'm a special, unique person. And I tried reds, and I loved blues. I had a blue keyboard for a while. It was way too loud for live streams and Zoom calls, as you can imagine. This was before Zoom calls were as popular as they are, but you know, anyway. So I would have blues all day if I didn't stream. I even occasionally thought about buying 2 keyboards and just using browns when I was on a stream and blues the rest of the time, but that seemed extravagant. But I tried. I would buy a keyboard from this from Ducky, or from whatever, mechanicalkeyboards.com, I think was the website, and I would try it, and it wouldn't really work out, and I'd send it back and take advantage of their return policy. And I really tried. Like, I tried so many different keyboards, trying not to end up with browns, and none of them really satisfied me. And then I tried browns, and I was like, oh, fine. I'm normal. I'm not special. There you go. But I think you're special, and I'm glad you're here for my live stream. Here's what's going on. Speed Silver. See, James Taylor, I wish I had Speed Silver. I tried whites. I tried a version of the whites that had way too high an actuation force. It was tiring on my fingers. I really wanted to like them. Here's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be checking out your questions here in the chat. Here we go. You want to ask questions in the chat? The chat, of course, will potentially answer your questions. I'll keep an eye out and answer some of your questions, but there's going to be a lot of questions going around, and of course, I won't be able to answer all of them. So if you want to make sure I notice your question, oh, people are doing it right now. Hit the $ right down here. Show your support. Leave a super chat. I will get to the super chats a little later in the stream. And over here, if you really want to be cool, these beautiful people are my patrons over on my Discord server. They support me on my Patreon for a couple bucks a month, as little as $2 a month, or more if you feel like I've earned it, is what I always say. You can join my Patreon. There's a link down below. And one of the advantages is you just get to feel good about contributing to what I do. And if that's not enough for you, you also get to hang out with these gorgeous people. You get 7% more attractive to the preferred gender of your choice, or genders. Hey, I don't judge. Just by joining this Discord server. It's true. Do you guys feel, have you noticed that your loved ones find you more attractive since you joined my Discord server? Cycling Mikey, Cyclimbo, Ghost Branch. I mean, assuming you have loved ones. I don't want to presume. Only 7%. I mean, I feel like that's a lot. Yeah, you don't even need to say anything. It just happens as soon as you join up. It's because you feel so good about having joined my Patreon. You go, something was bothering me. I don't know what it was. I joined Bardwell's Patreon, and suddenly everything felt right with the world. And that sense of self-confidence, that translates into attractiveness. Psych Limbo says 7% would be a doubling of my attractiveness. His, not mine. Alrighty, let's stop BSing around and let's answer some questions. Yeah, let's answer some questions. I'll go straight to the super chats. We've got a couple super chats come on. I can't read your name. Chhit FPV. I'm going to try not to swear on the stream. What's your favorite 5-inch frame for the DJI Air unit? So first of all, let me just say, if you're building a 5-inch freestyle quad, my personal recommendation is not to use the Air unit. Use the Vista. If Bubby were here, Bubby says he prefers the Air unit, because the Air unit has slightly better range and penetration. That is true. To me, the small difference in range and penetration is not worth the wait, but not everybody feels that way. Having said that, for the Air unit, let me give you a couple thoughts about frames you might consider. You can't talk about freestyle on the Air unit without at least mentioning the LeDrib Skyliner HD. It is Drib's Skyliner frame, but extended for the Air unit. I will say this definitely shows its age in the design. Like, the people just aren't designing frames with these thick arms anymore. Arms like this, they're intended for individual ESCs. I think Drib may still run individual ESCs for various reasons. Just because the frame design is a little dated doesn't mean it's bad, but it definitely, you're definitely not going to be like the coolest kid at the lunch table when you pull this frame out of your backpack, if, you know, metaphorically speaking. However, it's a really solid frame. You know, Drib beats the hell out of his frames. They still fly well. It's durable. And I like the fact that the camera up tilt's adjustable. It's a solid frame. Price $90. So definitely coming in at a high price. Just like there's no cutouts or anything. It's a little sparse. It's a little utilitarian. It's a very sort of basic design, but you could bash the hell out of it, and boy, he does. Let's see. I believe the GEP-RC Mark IV. I'm sorry. The GEP-RC has a Mark IV HD that's designed for the Air unit. That's the Vista version. I swear to God, there's an Air unit version of it. Mark IV HD 5. Yeah, so I like the GEP-RC Mark IV frame a lot. It's not my personal choice. It's a little too fiddly for my, it's for my aesthetic taste. Like I like it. I like looking at it from across the room and going, "Damn, girl, you fine." But then when she's like, "Hey, can I come home with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." So other people though really like this frame. Definitely worth mentioning. Thank you, Norse Viking. Can't talk about frames without mentioning the ImpulseRC Apex HD. This is an extended version of the Apex, which takes the Air unit. Super solid, super good frame. This is super solid frame. Some would argue one of the best frames that you can get. Yeah, so like this is $85 for this frame. Compare to the Skyliner HD for $90. This is there's just like a lot more sort of refinement in this frame, it feels like, than in the Skyliner. I'm sorry, Drew. I really like your frame. Yeah. ImpulseRC Apex HD certainly deserves a mention. QAVS Johnny FPV Now, I'm a fan of the QAVS. I really dig the design of the QAVS. I think that Ryan Harrell deserves a lot of credit. Everybody knows certain frame designers like the ImpulseRC Apex. Ryan Harrell is sort of the unsung I don't know, a lot of people don't know his name, but I think his frame designs are really cool. Like like if you look at the shape of the arms here, the way they're tapered, this is a way of saving weight while still maintaining strength, as opposed to just having straight arms. And I really love the way the arms join together. I don't think we have a picture of it here. On the bottom, the way they come together to allow a single screw arm change without compromising the strength of the arm. I think it's a very attractive frame design. QAVS Johnny FPV version has a metal front end and carries the air unit. NewBeeDrone Vivid. I actually did not have... So I did a build on the NewBeeDrone Vivid. Where's the Vivid frame? Somebody, let's see, who is that? Devil70. Dev D3VI70. Devil? I don't know. He's suggesting in the Discord the NewBeeDrone Vivid. I like a lot of things about this frame, but I broke the two arms. Please, can I just see the picture? I broke the arm twice in exactly the same location in a very mild crash. And I was like, okay, that's it for me. And I know, like, I've recommended the Diatone Roma F5 frame before, and some people said they had the similar results. I can only speak to my... Oh, DeVito. Like Danny DeVito. I see. DeVito. I can't read leet speak. Thank you, DeVito. I can only speak to my results. I did not break arms on the Roma F5. I broke two arms on the Vivid in exactly the same place in a relatively mild crash. I'm not a fan. So this is what I like about the QAVS. Can I get a QAVS replacement arm? Yeah. Let me show you what I'm saying about the QAVS replacement arm. Right? So here's how... Please. Here's the QAVS arm. And what they've done is the arms lock together using this tab. And the screw hole is over here. And if you compare that to most other frames, what you'll see is that the screw hole goes through the center of the arm. Let's see if I can find a picture of the arm on this guy. Okay, that's fine. So it's a boomerang arm, actually. You can see it goes straight through the center of the arm. And that weakens it. It creates a weak spot. Whereas what Ryan Harrell has done is incredibly clever. He's getting the full... So first of all, the arm is wider. It tapers out. But then also he's put the screw hole way off center. And it doesn't compromise the strength. Also, as Tommy Brickler points out, a spare arm can be used as a prop wrench. The motor hole here is the size of a prop nut, so you can use it to tighten your props down. That's pretty slick. Anyway, those are some choices for frame. Diatone Roma F5, pretty solid. They've also recently released a V2 of the Diatone Roma with a stronger arm. So these are some choices worth mentioning. There are others out there that I've overlooked, and nothing intended there, but yeah. All right. Redbeard the Pilot, thank you for a $5 super chat. Has the release of Rotor Riot's Outlaw changed your thoughts on sub 250 freestyle builds? Or do you think cruisers fit that niche better in general? So, Rotor Riot released their sub 250 freestyle frame. Credit to Sean Morrison for the design of this one. Sean is really, really showing his mettle as a designer and creator of FPV related stuff. So this guy is sub 250 with, am I right about this? It's sub 250 with a naked GoPro. Is that right? That, I think, was like the big selling point. I think it was. The build is 150 grams. You can use a battery up to 100 grams. Oh, no. What's a naked GoPro weigh? No, I think you could. What's a naked GoPro weigh? No, that's not it. 27 grams. So yeah, you could theoretically get like a 70 or 80 gram battery, not going to get super long flight times, but get under 250 grams with an actual high def cam. Now this is, as far as I know, the only freestyle build today, the only 5-inch build today that can carry a naked GoPro and come in under 250 grams. Perhaps you could accomplish something similar. Well, no, not in the 5-inch. I don't know another 5-inch. We got to mention the 250 from Tommy Tabahia from Oh My God as another sub 250 freestyle build, but I'm pretty sure the 250 doesn't carry a high def cam. So here's what I think though. If you look at Chris Rosser's recent video about selecting prop size, he goes deep into the concept of disc loading, where the disc area of your prop or the diameter of your prop can be compared, it can be calculated relative to the weight of the build, and it turns out that for a given weight of build, there is a certain optimal prop diameter. And you can watch Chris Rosser's video about that. I'll put it up on the stream real quick if you want to watch. After this live stream, don't you dare click away. YouTube will hate you. My analytics will hate you. Chris Rosser. This problem is there's more than one Chris Rosser. There we go. Chris Rosser. Pick the best motor. Let's just go to his channel. This is his channel. He's doing some amazing work. Choosing the right prop diameter for a drone. So this is the video that I'll put it in the chat as well for those who are watching the replay. And his take is that let me see if I can find the actual chart. His take is, there we go. So if I remember correctly, the green line up through to the yellow line is approximately where you'll get good results with prop loading. Where the green line is very light prop loading, like a racing, if you look at like, you know, the Baby Hawk 2 HD, the 533 Tiny Trainer, the 533 Switchback. These are very light disc loading, like a 5-inch quad in the 450 gram range. And then you get up to heavier disc loading like the yellow line, but then once you get past approximately the yellow line, things get really bad, is his argument. And I think if you look at a 250 gram quad, what you'll see is that the optimal prop diameter, it looks theoretically like you could have a 2-inch prop diameter. I don't buy it. But you can see that a 5-inch prop diameter is way outside where you really want to be. And I think his argument is that you're leaving RPM on the table, that the motors can't spin the prop fast enough. But the bottom line is that for a 250 gram build, somewhere between about 3 and 4 inches is the optimal prop size if you buy into this disc loading theory. And I think that jibes with my experience. Like, I've flown 250, 280 gram 3-inch quadcopters, and they're really good. And 4-inch quadcopters, they're really good. But every 250 gram 5-inch I've flown, like, here's what you have to convince me. You have to convince me that that quad wouldn't be better as a 4-inch. And I don't think you can. I'm skeptical. I asked Drew about this, and he said, yeah, there may be some truth to that, but the bottom line is everybody wants a sub 250 5-inch. And so we were interested to make the best sub 250 5-inch we could. And I was like, okay, fair enough. But if you're thinking about getting a sub 250 5-inch, ask yourself whether a 4-inch would do better. You're going to get more RPM on the props. You'll be able to use a little bit smaller motors perhaps and still get the same torque and responsiveness. Anyway. Shimi says prop loading is a BS theory. I mean, Chris Rosser, thing is, I asked him in our interview, what's your academic background? And he said, basically everything you need to know to design a jet engine. That's his job. So when Kebab said, you know what, guys, disk loading. I think disk loading is the way we need to think about props. Some people said, bro science, BS. And okay, you know, whatever. But when Chris Rosser says, I think disk loading is how we need to think about props, he actually is a professional person who does this. He has a university education and is working. Right now, he said what he's doing is designing very, very small mass flow sensors. So it's all about fluid dynamics and shit. So I don't think you can just be like, bullshit, prop loading, when Chris Rosser comes in the room and says that. Unless you also are like an aeronautical blah, blah, blah expert. All right, moving on. Aeromechanical engineering degree. Yeah, that's what he is. So, I would be interested to try. I don't know if that's true. Drew asked me. He said, "Hey, do you want to try out the Outlaw?" And I said to him, "Look, I am on record as hating sub 250 5-inch. So chances are I'm not going to fly this and go, oh my God, I changed my mind. Chances are I'm going to say, it's okay, but I would rather it be a 4-inch. Anyway. Why do you want a sub 250 5-inch? That's what you have to ask yourself. All right, moving on. Coelho FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. Any intel on when Betaflight 4.3 will be released? No intel. They'll release it when they're ready. I would have thought, I mean, we were hearing about it before the new year. I would have thought it would be by now, but Jesus, it's May. I don't know. Adam Bomber FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. Just got a Mamba F405 Mark II stack. After soldering and wiring, I connect to Betaflight. I get no receiver input in the modes tab. Adam Bomber, I appreciate your donation. This is the kind of thing we kind of have to go over in email, because the next thing I'm going to ask you is, what receiver have you got and where did you solder the signal wire? The number one mistake people make is they put the signal wire in the wrong place. For an S-Bus receiver, the S-Bus wire has to go to the S-Bus pad. For an SRXL receiver, it has to go to a UART TX pad. For a Crossfire receiver, you could have the TX and RX wires swapped. There are all these permutations, and we just have to go through them. So Adam Bomber, go ahead and email me, joshuabardwell@gmail.com, and we'll do it. We'll go through it. But thank you for your donation. Armand, thank you for a 100 rupee super chat. Hey JB, thanks for everything you do. I need help wiring a Hobbywing 60 amp ESC to an HDLR7 F7 flight controller. The Hobbywing has an NC pad and no TX pad. Okay, Aman, NC means not connected, no connection. And what that's telling you is that on another flight controller or ESC, there might be something in this spot, but this ESC or flight controller doesn't support it, and so they've left it out. But in order to maintain plug compatibility with other stuff, they've left the pin there. So NC you can ignore. And if there's a TX pad missing, it means the ESC doesn't support telemetry, and again, you'll just leave that out. Let's see here. What flight controller and ESC do you recommend for a DJI Air Unit 5-inch freestyle FPV drone? Funny you asked that. You can check out my website, fpvknowitall.com, which contains my ultimate FPV shopping list. And there are recommendations there for flight controllers, ESC, motors, and props. You can definitely check that out. I'm happy to tell you guys, I'll give you a little teaser. A little teaser of something I'm working on. We're updating this. This is going to get updated. This is because when I first wrote this, when I first created this page, I thought most of the stuff that people were flying was 5-inch, but now that's not true. And So I'm going to be reorganizing the page around classes of quadcopter rather than, like, instead of saying flight controllers, motors, I'm going to say, what are you building? A 5-inch, a 6-inch, a 7-inch, a 10-inch, a 2-inch, etc. And we're going to reorganize it. So, for example, here is some stuff about 5-inch freestyle category. That's probably going to be the first one to release. And going to update that around all these categories. So that's coming. There's going to be some updates to the website, so look forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. Sync Happens 86 has noticed that I used to have my editorial calendar up on my website, but I don't anymore. I hit a point, I don't remember exactly when, where I noticed that I wasn't updating it. And instead of planning ahead, I was just making stuff up. So over a year ago, when I started using the editorial calendar, I always felt really stressed. Like I had piles of stuff to review and I was just feeling really overwhelmed. And I said, I'm going to do an editorial calendar where I plan out the next few weeks or months of content. And that really helped me feel like I had a handle on what I was doing. Like I just know. But the problem was I started over-scheduling myself. So I would have like a video that will take 3 days to shoot. And anytime I make a video that's going to, let's say I've got a video that's going to take 3 days to shoot. It's just like a lot of research, a lot of work. Well, then I need 2 videos that take like 15 minutes to shoot to make up for that one video that's going to take 3 days to shoot. But I was just scheduling myself with really, really intense videos and then I couldn't keep up. And so then I was just like, forget it, I'm not going to do this. So I stopped updating the editorial calendar because I was stressing myself out. And then, of course, I took it off the website. So I appreciate that people liked being able to look ahead and see what I was going to do. But managing my own stress level is really important. Yeah, so if something is stressing me out, I really have to deal with it abruptly or I will go crazy. I'm constantly riding the edge of, like, I do a lot of work. And so I have to find ways to make that not stress me out at any given moment. I mean, it would be better if I had an editorial calendar. It would. But at some point, if it's, you just like, forget it. Gotta cut it. Goodwin Duncan is asking in the YouTube chat, what is the recommended long-range antenna for analog? If you're truly going long-range, I feel like you want to spend the money on a premium antenna. Foxeer does make good antennas, but you just have to assume that the overall quality control on a cheaper antenna is going to be worse. And if you're flying long-range, you kind of don't want to screw around. So I would go towards a VAS, a TrueRC, one of those premium antennas if you're going long range. And then you're going to pick something high gain like the TrueRC X-Air or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it was productive. Fabio Pansera says something, it was done to be more productive, but it was counterproductive in the end. It was productive for a while. As long as I was scheduling myself reasonably, then I could look at the editorial calendar and go, I don't need to freak out about next week. I just need to do today's video and then I can relax. But then once I started over-scheduling myself, it got really stressful. I was like, forget it. I got to get out of here. Yeah. Yep, I go through phases. Sometimes I feel better when I'm in a structure and I can just relax and let the structure keep me. I don't need to stress because I know that as long as I'm following the structure, everything's good. But then sometimes the structure starts to feel restrictive and I just want to just be able to, yeah, so anyway. All right, moving on. Hello, AA. I am a little ladybug in the chat. Says, my Wizard X220 HV doesn't arm. Any reason why? I'm a little ladybug. Whenever now someone has found a way to make me repeatedly say I'm a little ladybug. So I'm sure that won't get turned into any weird GIFs. Whenever Betaflight won't arm, go to the Setup tab. Look for your arming status, arming prevention status codes. Hang on, I'll show you. And that will tell you what to do next. So it's going to take a second here. Any day now. Okay, so we're going to connect, and we're going to go to the Setup tab, and over here on the right-hand side, we've got arming disable flags, RX failsafe, angle, and MSP. These are the reasons why your quad is refusing to arm. And MSP, you can ignore. That just means you're plugged into the configurator. But any others you would need to deal with. I have videos on almost all of these, so you can check Betaflight won't arm, and it'll tell you what you need to do. Let's keep going with the super chats. We've got a couple here. A couple more coming in. It's Darts. Thank you for a $5 super chat. Do you know if I could use the DJI stock goggle antennas on a quad for low profile features? I have the TrueRC stubbies on the goggles. Yeah, I mean, antennas are antennas. There's no difference between a transmit and a receive antenna. In fact, there's a principle called the law of antenna reciprocity, which basically says that an antenna transmits exactly the same as it receives. However, some antennas are not good for mounting on quads. For example, a highly directional antenna might be okay to mount on your goggle because you can just look and aim it at the quad, but a highly directional antenna on the quad, as soon as you rotate the quad, you're going to go out of the beam. So there are antennas that work better on the quad. The other main reason I would not use an antenna on a quad is durability. Some of the VAS antennas, the VAS Ion, for example. VAS Ion is a spectacular antenna. I don't put it on quads because I feel like it's not very durable. They break open. Whereas something like the Luminaire Axie or the TBS Triumph are designed to be super durable. So, I mean, those DJI antennas, if you needed to put it on a quad in a pinch, you probably could. Just make sure you've got the right connector. Ciati FPV says he's going with the Johnny FPV frame. Nice. Thank you for another $5 there, my friend. Daniel Navarro, thanks for a $5 super chat. If you're using a flight controller with a fixed wing, rather than using RX only, will it auto level in angle mode similar to a quad? Daniel, that depends on the flight controller. If you're using a flight controller with a fixed wing, yeah, absolutely. It can have an auto level mode. You can have all kinds of different... I mean, if you think about it, a fixed wing, the gyro-assisted modes don't exactly line up with a quad. Like on an airplane, perhaps you would want it to auto-level when you center the stick. Perhaps you would want it to gyro-stabilize at its angle. That's actually the more common... I mean, not that I'm an expert. I don't fly a lot of fixed wing, but I have flown fixed wing before. And I believe gyro-stabilized modes on a fixed wing more commonly hold the existing angle, which is what quadcopters do all the time, right? As far as angle mode where it levels back out again, I mean, it's easy to imagine that that could exist, but I suspect that most fixed wing pilots wouldn't want that. They'd want it to hold angle. So. Oh, here we go. Sync happens. Thank you so much. Hang on one second. Copy link. Sync happens in the Discord has given us this link, which is a description of the iNav flight modes and what they do. So, yeah. Bubby FPV talking about Rampage next week. Wait a minute. When am I leaving for Rampage? Rampage is May 15th through 16th, with early access options beginning May 13th. Okay, I didn't think I was leaving for Rampage this week. No, Rampage is next week. Bubby, when are you coming out? He said next week. Maybe he means next week. Yeah, I guess I'm going to frickin' Rampage next week. Wow, okay. What am I going to do for content? That'll be fine. Probably make a vlog. Yeah, it's next week. Ciati, I heard you were coming to Rampage as well. Glad to hear you're going to be able to make it, man. It'll be good to catch up with you. Next Wednesday. Next Wednesday. Not this Wednesday. Next Wednesday. Yes. For those of you who are not going to make it to Rampage, and it's pretty much sold out. So, haha, screw you, I guess. For those of you who are not going to make it to Rampage, one thing you're going to miss is a showing of the Flow State documentary. We're going to be showing different parts of the Flow State documentary on different nights. He may have talked them into letting him show the whole film. However, if you do miss that, we are going to be doing a showing. Geez, that's coming up. Wow, it's really coming up. We're going to be doing a showing. I haven't even started organizing this, so maybe I shouldn't say too much. What I want to do is I want to rent a theater probably in Atlanta, because Atlanta is a big city that's fairly central to the Southeast. If you're not in the Southeast, sorry. And Atlanta is a big FPV city as well. Probably Atlanta. Rampage is the 15th to 16th. Probably going to be, if I can get everything sorted out, probably going to be the weekend of the 4th and 5th of June. Is that June? Yeah. What we want to do is we want to rent a theater and show it there. It's going to be a private showing. We're not allowed to do a public. As soon as you premiere a film, then the festivals don't want it anymore, apparently. So if we do a public showing, that counts as having premiered it. But as long as it's a private showing, so what we're going to do is we're going to do basically a raffle. Raffle. You have to a random drawing. It's free. You don't have to pay money. Anybody who wants to come, going to put your name in a hat. We're going to draw names. How many names we draw depends on how many entries we get and how many people the theater will seat. But we're going to do showing. I'm going to try to. None of this is set in stone. I have to call theaters and say, hey, how much to rent your theater for a weekend or whatever. So don't. But I think we're going to shoot for the weekend of the 4th and 5th, the 4th, 5th, 6th in Atlanta, and do some showings of the film. So if it's possible that you might be interested, then consider keeping that weekend free. Ciati, listen, in addition to drawing random seats, we're going to have people who just are invited and welcome to come. And seeing as you're in the damn film, I suspect you're going to be one of those people. So don't worry. Take it easy. Anyway, I'm really excited to show you guys the film. I will not be paying for your travel arrangements, Jamie Patterson. You gotta get to the. If you can't get to the theater, then don't enter. Can I use DJI FPV batteries for other drones? Asks Nico Castile. Nico, the DJI smart batteries, no, they have a digital connection to the drone. I don't know this for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if they refuse to output power if they're not actually plugged into a drone. But I don't know for sure. Please do a live stream from Rampage. Huff19. I don't know if the cellular coverage out there is terrible. The last time I was at Rampage, I was on T-Mobile and had no signal, essentially. I have since moved to Verizon, and one of the reasons is that I was a Verizon customer for years, then switched to T-Mobile because it was cheaper. T-Mobile has a lot going for it. They got a lot of little bonus. Like, for example, if you're on an airplane, like, I can't remember the last time I was on an airplane. If you're on an airplane, then you get like 30 minutes or an hour of free Wi-Fi on the plane if you're a T-Mobile customer. They have all these little deals where you get free stuff as a T-Mobile customer, and their coverage and their speed was okay. But then occasionally when you were like at some event like Rampage, it was always the Verizon people who had coverage and always the T-Mobile people who didn't. And finally I was like, screw it. So I can't guarantee whether I could stream from Rampage, but when's the film open to the public? Well, IDV, ultimately our goal is to get it listed on like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or some other streaming service. So probably once that deal is signed, we may try to do like an actual public premiere, but I suspect what we're going to do is we're going to do private showings, and that we just won't take any money for those. That'll just be our sort of gift to the community. Come see this film. And then the public showings will be on streaming services. So anyway, yeah, T-Mobile was great. International, T-Mobile is great. When I went to China, I was able to get coverage over there incredibly easily. And I don't remember the details, but it was better than when I would travel with Verizon. Will it only be in the USA or worldwide, the film? No, worldwide, of course. Worldwide distribution is obviously our goal. Yeah, obviously. Is it going to be released on DVD? I doubt that. I mean, no offense. I just don't feel like that's really like we would have to pay to press DVDs, and maybe like a special edition or something, but I don't think that's our goal. So our goal is to get it picked up by a streaming service, and part of that is that we're going to show it at festivals. We've already applied to a couple of festivals. I couldn't tell you which exact ones. That's really James's area. But we will be showing it at some festivals, and once we're confirmed that we're in a festival, I will let you guys know. And if you are in the city where the festival's happening, or if you're attending the festival, of course you could see it. So we'll give you more information about that. But it'll be available for rent at Blockbuster. Okay. Angry Pepper, thanks for a $5 super chat. I flew my quad for the first time today. Congratulations. It's a great feeling. Is it still in one piece? Awesome feeling. It is an awesome feeling. It really is. It really is. Mr. Huggy, thanks for a £5 super chat. How about building a sub 250 5-inch, then try it on 4-inch and 3.5-inch, and add weight to match his disc loading curve? Interesting idea. I feel like the motors are going to be different, though. Yeah, I feel like you could probably build a nearly identical sub 250 5-inch, 4-inch, and 3.5-inch. Hey, Ciati. I mean, I know you're super busy, dude. Would that be something you'd be interested in collabing on? This is not really fair for me to throw it out here on the stream when you're under, that's really putting unfair pressure on you. I'll talk to Ciati about it. You don't have to answer, Ciati. But if anybody out there could build like a sub 250 5-inch, 4-inch, 3-inch, and try and keep them as similar as possible, but then it's like, what do you get with that weight and how do they fly? I think that would be a very interesting video. I think that would be very interesting. California Gaming, thanks for a $5 super chat. I've been flying FPV for almost 3 months now, and I want to build another 5-inch. Should I invest more into analog or go digital? Is analog on its way out? Okay, this is going to be I promise this is not about to turn into a 40-minute rant about DJI. Please don't tune out. Think about VHS. The very first time a DVD player was sold to a consumer, the end of VHS had begun. Right? Ciati says he's pretty much already done that. Okay, I want to hear more about that, Ciati, but let me finish this rant. As soon as the first DVD player was sold, the end of VHS started. But it was a long tail, wasn't it? How long was it until everybody could just freaking buy a DVD player for $20 at Walmart? It was a long time. And VHS stayed viable for a long time. The day that DJI, think about, we had Caddx ProSight. Caddx ProSight was not the beginning of the end, because Caddx ProSight just didn't quite tick enough boxes to be commercially viable. It was close. It was just a little ahead of its time in a way. FPV Blue never really made it to commercial viability. The release of DJI, and then almost immediately thereafter, the release of SharkBite marked the beginning of the end of analog FPV video. Right now, if you look at sales of products, or if you look at Pavel's survey that he did, FPV survey, about 33%, about a third of people are flying DJI. So it's certainly not the majority. But when you consider that it came out a year ago, just a year ago, and how expensive it is, it's an incredible adoption. But what you're going to see is that those early adopters jump on, and then the people who are flying analog, there are people who are going to keep flying analog for a long time. Should you jump on DJI, or should you go with SharkBite, or should you wait for whatever Orca is? Should you wait for the next generation? We're not going to touch that here. But the question is analog on the way out? And the answer to that question is yes. It is. It has started to put on its coat and its hat. It's still in the room, still part of the conversation, but it's looking at the door. There are still reasons to choose analog. But to answer your specific question, yes, it is on the way out. Spewforth, thank you for a $5 super chat. Lost Giants, thank you for a $10 super chat. Any evidence on whether single band antennas on the can damage the DJI Goggles V2? No, they can't. I don't know where people are hearing this. Maybe this is the same person. I got this question now twice, or maybe once from the same person twice. Can antennas damage the DJI V2 goggles? No. You can run the DJI goggles with no antennas whatsoever, and they won't damage themselves. I mean, you'll get terrible range. They're protected against that type of damage. There is no single band antennas will not. If you can run the goggles with no antennas at all and they don't damage themselves, then what's putting a mistuned antenna going to do? Nothing. It's fine. Ciati. I'm looking back. Ciati said he basically did the test. Oh, he's going to jump on Discord. All right, Ciati, hang on, man. Which Discord? Let me go over to Ciati's Discord. Bot Grinder, Ghost. I have all these Discords from all my friends. There he is. Ciati FPV. Are you on the Discord, Ciati? Do you want to jump in a voice channel or what? Let me ping him. We'll talk about that question. I think it's a really interesting question. While I'm catching up with him on the Discord server, though, let me take another super chat. Scott Steely, thank you for a $5 super chat. If you add coax adapters to the antennas, will you make the antennas weaker? Yes, but only a small amount. Every adapter, every connector has a tiny, tiny amount of loss. I've heard like about a half a dB. It's not nothing, but it's definitely something. Looks like Ciati is in voice chat. Hang on. Hey, Ciati, are you there? Hang on one second. You gotta mute yourself or put headphones on. I can hear myself in the background. Sorry, man. Hang on one second. Let me get you unmuted.
You should be good to go now.
Yeah, I hear you. And the chat can hear you too. Hang on one second. Okay, I believe the chat can also hear Ciati. How you doing, Ciati? Thank you for jumping on the stream.
I'm good, man. Yourself?
Very well. So the question that was being asked was, what if you were to build we said sub 250, but it's basically going to be 250 grams because you're going to be right up against the limit. Build a 5-inch, a 4-inch, and a 3-inch, and like how would those stack up against each other? And you said I've done that. Talk about it. Tell me.
So easiest way to think about it is that a toothpick, 3-inch, 70, 80 grams all up weight. The flight characteristics of a toothpick are going to be pretty close to a 250 gram rig that's on a 5-inch prop. The size of the propeller is the size of the parachute, basically. So if you like the toothpick flight style characteristics, a sub 250 5-inch is going to be great. Sub 250 5-inches are also great for like long range kind of stuff. But for hard freestyle work, like what I'm most interested in, it's just, you know, my 4.5 years ago, the very first rig I built was basically a toothpick. It was the original Baby Hawk, and I took that as far as I possibly could. And then I wanted better camera protection. I wanted tri-blade propellers. I wanted more weight for off-throttle throws. And so I started building bigger and bigger, heavier and heavier 3-inch rigs, and got up to about 200. In my opinion, 200 to 210 grams is just about right for a 3-inch prop to give you that 5-inch, 600 to 700 gram flight characteristic.
So are you also sort of going back to the question of disc loading, the weight of the quad versus the diameter of the prop, similar to what Chris Rosser was talking about?
Pretty much, yeah. Just because every single time you come off the throttle, I mean, you know, we can make power now. Back then, making power was the problem. Nowadays, making power is not the issue. The issue is smooth running motors to get clean HD footage. And yeah, in terms of the size of the propeller to the all-up weight, yeah, disc loading has most to do with it. And in terms of just, you know, the flight characteristics when you're actually up in the air, like when you're on the throttle just cruising forward, I mean, that's not really flight characteristics to me. Anything can just do that.
Yeah, no, I see your point there. So your argument is that the disc loading of a 5-inch 250 is similar to like a toothpick 3-inch, say 60 to 80 grams. That's a similar disc loading, and they're going to have similar sort of floaty flight characteristics, which you don't like.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's just, you know, in my opinion, those kind of rigs, like you just leave a little bit on the table. You got to sort of drive them around the sky like an RC car, whereas when you start adding weight, you can start doing stuff off the throttle, inverted, you know, wacky kind of fun stuff that we're used to seeing from 5-inch flight edits.
Yeah, I guess you could spin the question the other direction and say, what problem is the sub 250 5-inch the perfect solution to? And you're arguing that if you want to do like freestyle, that's not the answer. You like being in the 3-inch, maybe you said 200-ish gram, or maybe 4-inch. I feel like 4-inch is about perfect for 250. What is the sub 250 5-inch perfect for?
And to put a caveat on there, this is all like my style of freestyle,
of
right?
Course.
Like
of course,
everybody's style of freestyle is totally different. If somebody thinks that Toothpicks Rigs style of freestyle is perfect for them, awesome. Sub 250 5-inch all day, every day. But yeah, so for me to get a little bit more going there, 3 to 3.5 inch propellers on 200 to 250 grams seems like the best mix, and the best way to get that 5-inch flight characteristic. 4-inch, you got to go up to like 300, 400 grams. And it kind of makes sense, right? Like you look at like the bracket of like 600 to 700 grams on 5-inch to carry a GoPro. And then you bring that down by like 200 grams for 4-inch. And then you bring that down another 150 to 200 grams for 3-inch. And this is something that I sort of figured out with the Acro Brat 2 years ago when we were all doing the prototype testing, and the Acro Brat ended up being a little over 250, 260, 270 grams all up on the 3-inch prop. And it was a different flight style. Like it would basically come to where I really notice it is off throttle, how long it takes to get down to the ground. Most of my flying has been done on 5-inch, 600 gram rigs, and there's a pacing and there's a timing to how long I've got before I smack into the ground. And 260, 270 grams on a 3-inch prop, that pacing was quicker. It would come down out of the sky faster, and I would end up hitting the ground a lot more than I'd like. When I brought that weight down to 200 to 210 grams, that pacing just kind of figured itself out. And yeah, I started flying much more comfortably.
Yeah, you say that about 4-inch, and I think actually now that I think about it, you're right. The 250 gram 4-inches that I liked a lot were the long range cruisers, which are not really doing hard freestyle. They have like 1404 motors, and they're not, you can freestyle anything, but they were more designed for cruising. I thought they were really, really good. The 4-inch freestyle that I like a lot is the Shocker 4-inch, the Catalyst Machine Works, but that guy is not 250. It's closer to 300, I think. It's like 280, 290, which is right around what you were saying. So, great. I really appreciate that. And
it felt good. Chris Rosser actually just put a video out on part 2 on prop selection, and he did a graph talking about all this, and it felt really awesome for him to end up saying like, hey, look, 200 grams, 3-inch, 250 grams, 3.5 to 4-inch. It was kind of cool to see the science back up.
Isn't it? Because like, you fly what you fly and you like what you like. And sometimes people say things like bro science, you know. But when Chris comes out and backs up those things with, if Chris comes out with something and says you're completely wrong, then I think you got to go like re-examine yourself and say, am I? Like, what's going on here? And maybe you still stick by it. But if Chris comes out and says, I agree, the theory backs you up, that's got to feel great.
Yeah, it did, because it's been a long road to kind of get there and figure that out. And for a while, it was like, why does this acrobat fly a little bit differently? Why do I have to keep adjusting every time I fly it? Because that's my goal is to have all my rigs kind of fly as similar as possible, so that I don't have to have a totally separate sort of muscle memory for each individual rig that I fly. Because that really makes dialing in my flying a lot harder.
Yeah. Awesome. We've been talking to Ciati FPV. Ciati, you're going to be streaming in an hour at 3 p.m. if people want to hear more from you. But I'm going to let you go. Thank you for jumping on. Really appreciate that. All righty. All right. Yeah, Ciati's going to be, he's getting toward the end of the stream, coming up on the hour. Ciati's going to start posting the link to his live stream. And if you want to hear, Ciati certainly flies 5-inch, but also has a lot of experience with micros if you want to go that direction. So let me get back in my own server here and come back to the live stream chat. Yeah, so there you go. Maybe that's why I don't like how 5-inch sub 250 freestyle flies, because I want to fly it like a 5-inch freestyle quad. And it just, because of the disc loading, it just isn't that. I would rather fly like a 4-inch. Like I love flying the Shocker for freestyle. It comes in close to, I think, around 300 grams. I don't remember the weight, but it's heavier, and I feel like it's really well matched to the props. Abimanyu Vanimel is having death rolls and wants to know how to solve death rolls. Normally, if you're getting death rolls, it's a bad motor. If it's not a bad motor, it's a bad ESC. The key thing to look for is that the quad always rolls the same direction. If you do a left roll and it death rolls, and you do a right roll and it doesn't, that could be a bad motor. But if it death rolls anytime you do any sharp stick movement, that's probably not a motor, right? A bad motor will cause it to always roll the same way. But if it is rolling the same direction, replace the motor on the side that it rolls towards. If that doesn't work, replace the ESC. The thing is, it isn't always the motor or the ESC, but it is the motor and the ESC enough % of the time that that's almost always the first thing you should do. And don't throw out the old motor or ESC. Maybe they're fine, but a lot of the time that should be the first thing you should do. Unless you have really weird motors or props, or where the ESC defaults might not be good for you, but usually they are. Aerospace Inc. 53, thank you for a $10 super chat. I have a gimbal failing on my X-Lite. I use the TBS Tracer RC Link. Is Tango 2 a good replacement, or should I just replace my gimbal? Well, look, obviously, replacing the gimbal is going to be a lot cheaper than buying a Tango 2. The X-Lite, FreeSky makes very good radios. The hardware quality of FreeSky radios is quite good. Probably not on par with like a Futaba or a Spectrum, a high-end Spectrum, but certainly the quality of FreeSky's radios is higher than some of the budget radios that are out there today. So I would not replace the X-Lite just because it had a bad gimbal. If you're looking for an excuse to jump to the Tango 2, like the Tango 2 is a great radio. It's very, very well made, good quality. I mean, especially if you're going to be using the Tracer module anyway. Like the big reason to jump to the Tango 2 might be that you plan to use Crossfire. But if you're not using Crossfire, then there's less motivation to move to the Tango 2 from the X-Lite. I like the ergonomics on the Tango 2 better than the X-Lite. It has straighter sides and it's easier for me to grip. Of all the game controller style radios, the Tango 2, to me, the ergonomics are the best. But if you already use the X-Lite, then obviously you probably like the ergonomics just fine. The Tango 2 is a very good radio. If you're like looking for an excuse to jump to it, I think it's got good quality. But if you're happy with your X-Lite, obviously replacing the gimbal is going to be cheaper. ZFPV and others are saying, they're sort of taking issue with my advice that when you're getting death rolls, you should replace the motor and then replace the ESC. Here's the thing. Let's say that you get out of bed one morning and you put your weight on your foot and your ankle goes, and you fall on the floor. So, something's wrong with your ankle. Now, at that point, you say, well, you got to go get your ankle checked out. Somebody could say, no. Just take these crutches. Look, what we're going to do is we're going to put an ankle brace on your ankle. We're going to give you some crutches. You'll be fine. That's what I feel like you're doing when you respond to a death roll by changing the ESC settings. You're putting a bandage on the problem, a crutch on the problem, and that has effects. Now, that's not universally true. For example, Kebab FPVs, the FPV Cycle 5-inch motor, was having desyncs and death rolls. And Kebab was like, whoa, this is a weird motor. It's like it's got weird dimensions. It's outside the sort of normal bounds of what the ESC defaults were designed for. Okay. Let's say you're doing 6S 2400 kV. Ultra high RPM stuff. Oh, I'm getting desyncs. Yeah, okay. You're in weird territory. But if you're running 2306, 2400 kV on 4S, and you're getting death rolls, maybe you'll solve that by changing your DMAG from medium to high. But you shouldn't be getting death rolls. Something is messed up. And if you want to put a bandage or a crutch on it by changing your ESC settings, you can, but it doesn't change the fact that something is messed up. That's my take. So you got to ask yourself, do I have a weird build where my motors and props are outside the bounds of what the ESC was normally designed to deal with? In which case, maybe you need to change those default settings, change your startup power, change your DMAG, change your timing. And like, if your quad is death rolling and you just don't have the money to get a spare motor and try and replace it, hey, slap a crutch on it. At least you'll be flying. But if you can, if you're getting death roll, you shouldn't be getting death rolls on the default settings for most builds. So I disagree, 661 FPV, that the defaults only work with a very narrow range of setups. The defaults work on a wide range. They may not be ideal, they may not be optimal, but they shouldn't death roll. That's what I would say. Mad Hero FPV says, I have your JBF7 and the Runcam Phoenix 2 and UART camera control isn't working. I think you have... I've heard a couple reports of this, that UART camera control is messed up. And you say sometimes it says joystick or UART if you power cycle. That's if you see it switch between joystick and UART control when you power cycle, it means the TX and the RX wire pins are shorted to each other. And that shouldn't be. So definitely check your wiring if you accidentally got those shorted together somehow. But you may have a damaged camera. Basket FPV says, is BL Heli 32 better in performance than BL Heli S? BL Heli 32 allows you to tweak some parameters that can't easily be tweaked in BL Heli S. But I wouldn't say in general that BL Heli 32 has better parameters or has better performance, especially if you are falling in a range where the default parameters work well for you. Nick Sebring agrees. He's tried the defaults, the BL Heli defaults from 2.5 inch up to 5 inch. They all fly just fine. Not perfect, but they fly. Yeah. If you're going above, let's say 7 inch, you may need to change some of the settings. And if you're going to a weird KV range or something, you may need to change some of the settings. And if you want optimal performance, you may need to change some of the settings. But they shouldn't be death rolling. How necessary is the capacitor on the QAVS Mini battery lead? Alexander Seidler asks. Alexander, almost every build can benefit from a little bit more capacitance. Whether you put that capacitor on the battery lead or solder it directly to the ESC, they're all going to work better. You're going to have less likelihood of blowing the ESC. You're going to have cleaner analog video. I actually heard somebody make an argument that they get cleaner DJI video with a capacitor, although it's harder to tell because, like, it just looks slightly lower bit rate, which is a little less obvious than analog breakup. So I would absolutely want to have that capacitor. I wouldn't want to leave it off. I would want to find a way to put it on there. On 4S builds, a lot of times I used to leave the capacitors off just out of laziness. On 6S builds, it's absolutely mandatory. And on micro builds, a lot of times you need more capacitance than just because the boards are so small, they don't put enough capacitors on there. So I would probably try to get at least some capacitance on there on any build. Fabian Bauer says, I broke an antenna on my radio, and I know I can use Wi-Fi antennas, but they're dual band. Will they work? Fabian, they're not going to work as well as an antenna that's tuned to the correct frequency. I would hesitate to do that because the radio boards in our controllers are oftentimes not very well protected against having the wrong impedance on the antenna output, and I might be a little worried about damaging it. I would want to use a correctly tuned antenna. What do you think of Diatone Mamba stacks for the first digital build, asks Alex Correba. In general, Diatone flight controllers and ESCs are pretty solid. They're not like the most solid, absolutely bulletproof, but they're pretty solid and a good value for. They're actually a great value for the money. So like, if 10 out of 10 is the most bulletproof hardware you could possibly get, like a Hobbywing ESC is probably 10 out of 10 in terms of durability. An Acon ESC, perhaps. If 10 out of... so I probably... Diatone is like probably like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 in terms of durability, but like a 12 out of 10 in terms of price and value. Like why did I choose a 10-point scale if I was just going to go to 12 out of 10? I don't know what my problem is. They're really good value. So the one thing I would say is Diatone has this new budget line. We covered it in the... Oh my God, it's a new month. We need to do a new product roundup. Holy crap. It's the first of a month. Got to get that scheduled. Diatone has this new budget line. Like literally they're just calling it the Diatone budget. Basic, the Diatone Basic, that's it. And I have heard a couple of the people on my Discord have said they've had bad luck with this. That like they've just had a really high failure rate. Fabio is very excited to have to edit the new product roundup, which is like we probably talk for 2 hours and he edits it down to an hour. It's not a complicated edit, but it's super boring. I know because I used to edit them. It's super boring to edit. So I would say these basic, they're incredibly inexpensive for what they offer. And when I first saw them, I was like, oh my God, Diatone has done it again. Like normally Diatone stuff is so inexpensive that I'm like, this has to be crap. And then it's very good for the price. But I've heard some reports that this basic line is not quite as good as you would hope, and you might want to stay away from it. But in general, Diatone, the higher end stuff from Diatone, still very, very good value and good quality. And maybe this is just maybe the basic line is just fine, and this is just a one-off unlucky guy. I don't know. Diatone's Mamba's been out for a couple of years, sure. Crash Day 1 is asking in the Discord about a better option than the Baby Croc for long-range light acro. I would lean towards the iFlight Chimera. They have an X-plate, their X-plate version, the bottom plate versus a Dead Cat style. I would look at the iFlight Chimera. It's got a little heavier. It's a little heavier, but for light acro and durability, that's where I would steer you. A lot of people are saying that the Caddx Nebula Nano, which is a very, it's got pretty poor image quality. I heard some people saying that the reason for the poor image quality is the lens, that it's a plastic lens and it results in haloing. And some people have said with shark bite, some people have noticed the same kind of haloing on shark bite as on the Caddx Nebula Nano, and have said that if you replace that with a glass lens from a Caddx Tarsier or the Caddx Ratel, that it gets way better. I wonder if the Nebula Nano would benefit from the same thing as shark bite by upgrading that lens. I don't know anybody who has tried that before. Well, Grumpy FPV says the Diatone basic line just has like advanced stuff like Wi-Fi left off, but is the same quality. I mean, I appreciate that should be the case, but I have heard some feedback from a couple people who've said they had bad results with it. I should ask Blunty. Blunty uses Diatone almost exclusively. I'm not sure if he's weighed in on that. Okay. Oh, I've lost my live stream chat. Where's my live stream chat? There it is. Skidoosh says, none of us are flying long range. Stop calling them long range. You've got a micro 4-inch quote unquote long range. It's got a freaking 550. I mean, Skidoosh, some of them, if you put a 3,000 milliamp hour lithium ion on it, it'll go out 5, 6, 7 kilometers and get back. I mean, is that long range? I mean, I would call that long range. Doghouse FPV in the Discord has an interesting question. What are the consequences of a manufacturer putting an FCC mark on a product that has no FCC certification? There are no consequences, Doghouse. In theory, the FCC could take action against them. They could fine them. But practically speaking, especially if the manufacturer is a foreign company, no one's ever going to catch them and no one's ever going to care. I mean, if DJI, if a big company that's very visible sold a product with an FCC mark on it, that it wasn't FCC certified, they probably would get noticed and they might get fined, or their product might be prevented from being imported to the United States. But for a smaller company like a Caddx, no one's going to notice and no one's going to care. I'm going to give you an example. Let's see if this is still true. Ooh, could get myself in trouble. I'm going to get yelled at. Hey, that's life. You got to do what you got to do. This is the product manual from the TBS Unifi Pro. Not the Pro 32. This is the older one. Let's go to the end of this. There's an EU Declaration of Conformity. Declaration of Conformity. This used to have Part 15. No. Okay, good for you. So the TBS Unifi manual used to have a Part 15 compliance statement in it, which normally indicates that the device has Part 15 certification. And that isn't true. The Unifi doesn't have Part 15 certification. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It just is. It's a ham device. It's not a Part 15 device. And I actually reached out to Trappy. I was like, does this device have Part 15? I don't think this compliance statement can actually be correct. And to their credit, I guess he was like, oh yeah, I guess that's right. And they took it out. But the Unifi manual had a Part 15 compliance statement in it for some time. I don't know how long. And people might have been purchasing that device thinking that it was Part 15 compliant. It wasn't. There was no consequence. Doghouse FPV goes on to ask, is it correct that Caddx has an FCC mark on the Vista and it actually has no FCC certification? I can't say for sure that it doesn't have FCC certification, but I can say that Blunty, at least, has searched and searched and searched in the FCC database and cannot find an FCC certification for the Caddx Vista. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Maybe it's under some holding company and it's not under Caddx's name, or it's not registered as a Vista, but we haven't been able to find it. And so one could speculate that the reason DJI released the Vista under Caddx's name was because the DJI Air unit had Part 15 certification, and the Vista would have taken a long time to receive Part 15 certification. And by releasing the Vista through Caddx, which is a much smaller manufacturer, it was able to be released into the U.S. market without anybody noticing that it didn't have Part 15 certification. One could speculate that that was what happened. One would not assert that that was true because there's no evidence. That's pure speculation, and one wouldn't want to be irresponsible about saying untrue things, but that is a plausible scenario. One could further speculate that the reason the Air unit was canceled and moved over to Caddx's brand is related to similar things where DJI is subject to scrutiny that Caddx is not. It doesn't seem like the Vista has Part 15 certification, though, even though it's being sold with a Part 15 mark on it. This is way more common than you think, though. There are lots of stuff. There's lots of things out there, like little companies, and they just slap a CE certification or they slap a Part 15 mark on it when it doesn't have it. And the first time you hear about this, it's outrageous. And you're like, I can't believe they're getting away with this. And then when you see how often it happens on some, I mean, I speak only for myself. When I first saw this, I was like, I can't believe that how dare they violate the sanctity of the FCC Part 15 mark. And then I was like, oh, it's just all over the place. And usually it doesn't matter. I'm like, okay, I guess this is just how things are done. Anyway. There you go. Thank you for that question. That's a fun question. What camera is the new Caddx Air unit supposed to have? I hope it's at least as good as the Nebula Pro, because the other ones are inferior, but it doesn't seem to match the case of any known camera, so we don't know. What are the chances that it's better than the DJI camera? Well, my hope would be, so in the past what has happened is that the Caddx Vista, the video transmitter, has I'm really sure it's been manufactured by DJI, and Caddx maybe just does the final assembly, but the PCBs I'm positive they're not made by Caddx, just because if you look at the PCBs, they're just clearly very, very high quality. And Caddx, I mean, they make cameras, they make okay stuff, but they just don't make like quality PCBs. I would hope that the camera is the same camera and it's just in a slightly different case and it's being made by DJI because it's a really good camera. But I would fear that Caddx is just going to slap something like the Nebula Pro on there, which is I would be okay with that. It's okay, but it's not as good a camera as the regular DJI camera. We don't know. Fabio Pansera in the chat points out that the CE European certification and the CE China export logo look almost identical. Who knew? Wow, what an interesting coincidence that the logo for the CE mark of China export looks almost identical to the European CE logo. Such an inconvenient coincidence. What's Van's question? Van is apparently spamming the chat. My V-fly pops when I arm. What to check? Your V-fly is popping when you arm because your motors are pulling current. Van. That's the answer. The V-fly smoke stopper pops when current flows. Now, one thing that causes current to flow is a fault, like a short circuit, and it will protect against that. But if you just arm, that current will flow, and it will pop. That's normal. Nothing wrong. That's the answer. The challenge is knowing the difference. If you plug in and the V-fly pops, most likely you have a fault. However, in some cases, especially if you have really big motors, the motor beeps themselves are enough to pop the smoke stopper. And at that point, it's like, how do you know if it's a fault or if it's just your motors? It can be a little tricky. Like, if you plug in and it instantly pops, then it's probably a fault. You could test with your multimeter to see if you have continuity between the XT60 pins. If you plug in and it goes beep pop, then it's probably the motors popping them. You can actually go in and turn down the ESC beacon strength on BLHeli ESCs, and it will help with that. Of course, you have to plug in order to do that. Mad Prop says the Vista Nebula Pro is available now at Race Day Quads. Oh, finding this crap in stock is really tricky. Is it in stock? No. Race Day Quads. There we go. Caddx Nebula Pro Digital HD VTX. Oh, in stock. Hang on. Let's make an affiliate link because I got to get them sweet, sweet affiliate clicks. You know me. Ba-bam! Ba-bam! There's a affiliate link. It's in stock now. Thank you for pointing that out, Mad Props. If anybody wants to pick one up, you know, there you go. There it is. They're so tough to find. I recently announced that I will be sending a set of DJI goggles to Wesley Vardy. In case you don't know, Wesley Vardy is heavily involved with the Express LRS program. Big Express LRS user. I don't think he's a dev, but he does a lot of testing and a lot of videos about Express LRS, and he does long range testing as well. And a lot of people are critical of the way that I do range testing. I don't know what the problem is. You get your lawnmower out, you sit on your lawnmower, and you drive down the road while holding up the radio. That's how you do range testing, right? I don't know what's the big deal? Obviously. But some people think that in order to range test, you should fly the quadcopter out in the sky. Hey, you know, whatever makes you happy. So, despite the fact that I am heavily biased against Sharkbite and get daily cash drops from DJI in exchange for promoting them, I sent Wesley Vardy a set of DJI goggles so he could do range testing and an air unit. Actually, I ordered it. I haven't sent it to him yet. But I'm going to be sending it to him so he can do some. He actually I was going to buy him a Sharkbite system, but he actually is working with Carl from Divimath on some things and already has a Sharkbite system. So that's exciting. It saved me about $400 in gear I was going to send him. So thank you for that. I'm very interested to see his range test results. A lot of people have said things, and people in the chat are saying this like right now, have said things like, why would you bother range testing DJI? We know that there's a 6 kilometer limit, we know, in 25 megabit per second mode, and a 12 kilometer limit in 50 megabit per second mode. Absolutely. I'm curious to see how much range he's going to get, like on the stock antennas versus on an iFlight Crystal. I asked, one of the tests I asked him to do is to set it at 25 milliwatts and see how much range he gets if you're like a European pilot who's on, or at 200 milliwatts if you're racing and you're limiting yourself to 200 milliwatts to prevent interference. So I asked him about all these things. And we're going to be coming up with a set of test procedures he's going to do. The other thing people have said is people have already range tested DJI. Why would you repeat the results? I feel like there's a lot of value in having the exact same guy with the exact same test protocol and procedures running the tests. When two different people run a test and get different results, you can't know for sure. This is a real challenge in science. If you have two people who run a test and don't get the same results, did they use the same procedure? Did they use the same equipment? Etc. So by having Wesley running the tests, we're assured that the results are more likely to be comparable. So, this is a situation where there's somebody out there that's doing really, really good work. There once was a time when I felt like I had to do everything myself, when I would have said, I'm going to build an airplane and I'm going to find a place to do long-range testing. And then, you know, that would have been my content for the next 2 weeks. That kind of sounds cool. But instead, I'm going to just let the guy who's already good at it do it and support him. So look forward to that. RC Shim does a great job with the antenna tests, David Skadoosh. You're absolutely right. He absolutely does. I feel like I feel more interested at this moment in Wesley's testing, where he's literally doing out and back flights. I think people are going to be most interested in that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. It's going to be weeks before that comes back, but I am looking forward to it. And no one can accuse me of being biased. No, that's the other thing. If I do the test, no matter what, someone is going to find a thing I did that they disagreed with and say I did that because I'm biased and because I wanted Sharkbite to lose or something. But if I just have someone else do the tests, no one can accuse me of being biased because I didn't run the tests. So screw you. Anyway. Unfair Frame 653 wants to know if binocular style goggles under $200 exist today. Not worth having. Like, maybe you could still buy the EV100, but you shouldn't. Right now, binocular style goggles are coming in around $350, $400. And just 4 or 5 months ago, that was cheaper, but they've gone up. RC Shim also does some out and back flights. I'm not taking anything away from RC Shim. He's amazing. I've just been talking to Wesley about doing this stuff, and he's the one I'm going to be sending stuff to. Does Wesley also get accused of being biased? I've seen some criticism of Wesley's ghost testing. I also think his ghost test result was weird. In this case, he's testing video links, though. Like, he has been accused of having a pro Express LRS bias. I don't think that he has skewed his results. And his tests are basic enough, like you just take off and you fly out and you come back. That like, I feel like but his ghost test result was a little weird. He got like 5 or 6 times more distance. I don't remember the exact multiplier. He went from 100 milliwatts to 350 milliwatts on ghost, and he got like 5 or 6 times more distance, which that's not how RF works. I almost question whether it was responsible to release that result. I mean, there's a perspective from which you go, I ran the test, here's the result that I got, and I'm going to tell you about it. But like as an RF professional, if you double the every time you quadruple the output power, you should approximately double the range, all else being equal. That ratio is just baked into the physics. So if he went from 100 milliwatts to 350 milliwatts, he should not have gotten even double the range. And the fact that he got like 4 or 5, maybe 6, I don't remember the multiplier, but it was at least 4 times the range. That doesn't add up. It means that it probably means that the 100 milliwatt test was too low. Now, I'm not saying he was irresponsible for releasing those results, because like, let's say that at 100 milliwatts, Immersion RC Ghost, I'm not saying this is true. Please don't misquote me here. But hypothetically, let's say that at the 100 milliwatt setting, Ghost is actually only outputting like 30 milliwatts. Maybe his module was messed up. That kind of thing would explain why he got much shorter range than at 350, much longer range at 350 than at 100. But I feel like that question at least deserves to be addressed, that those results are very incongruous. I actually sent him a Ghost module. He said, well, I don't know, how was he able to do the test the first? Oh, because, right, he wanted a second module to see it so he could rerun the test. And Immersion RC was going to send him the module, but then they kind of flaked and didn't send it to him. And he was like, well, I can't do anything. So I was like, here, I'll buy you a Ghost module. Yeah. So he's going to be rerunning that test, and we'll see what the results are. Anyway, there you go. So is he biased? I mean, he obviously is an enthusiast about Express LRS, but I personally don't think that I see that reflected in his experimental design, and I don't think he's intentionally skewing results. Regardless, as far as video links go, I don't think anybody's accused him of having any bias. Coelho FPV says watts is just power dissipation, not directly related to radiated power. dB is a more accurate unit for radiated power. Coelho, you can convert dB. So dB is not a unit of power, first of all. I'm going to pick on you, but just to show off how smart I am this one time. dB is not a unit of power. dB is a ratio, right? So we could have dBm or dB... We could have dBi or dBm. Those are absolute measurements of a quantity, but dB is just a measurement of the ratio between two quantities. dBm can be converted to watts. So dBm and watts are equally, they're literally just convertible directly to each other. 1 dBm equals 1 milliwatt. 20 dBm equals 100 milliwatts. So watts and dB are equally good for measuring output power. Just depends on how you want to talk about it. All right. Michael Hill, thank you for a $10 super chat. I'm doing your Xylo build, and I'm at the part with the receiver files on the TX16S. Stop, back up. Michael Hill, back up. If you've got the TX16, you do not need to do the things that I show in that video. The things I show in that video are only if you're using the X-Lite. So unfortunately, we had to just pick one controller and do instructions for that controller. But since you're not using that, and by the way, the TX16 is great. But because you're not using that, you don't need to flash firmware like I show in that video, Michael Hill. Now you're saying there's no option to flash internal, just copy, rename, delete. The two reasons for that are that the file is not in the firmwares folder, or the file doesn't have the correct extension, the FRSK extension. But stop, don't flash the receiver and don't flash your module, because you don't need to do that. For example, maybe Michael Hill, you downloaded the no, that would still work. Never mind. You don't need to do that, Michael. Just bind the receiver. Don't flash the receiver. James Taylor says, I've managed to destroy, thank you for a £5 super chat, James Taylor. I've managed to destroy 2 Caddx baby turtles Any chance it's repairable? Probably not. I mean, like, James, if you're an expert at PCB repair, then perhaps you could find the thing that died and replace it. But for a typical user with just like a soldering iron, you probably can't repair it. There's something died. Maybe you could figure it out if you were really clever. But the fact that you're asking probably means that you don't. Like, if you already were an expert in PCB repair, you wouldn't be asking me right now if it's possible to repair them. You would just be like, well, I'm going to get out my oscilloscope and I'm going to figure this out. Since you haven't already done that, probably you're not gonna. See what I mean? The Patty B, thank you for a $5 super chat. How beat up do you let your props get before you change your props? Patty B, my goal is usually to have clean video. If I'm shooting for a Rotor Ride episode, or if I'm doing like a once-in-a-lifetime building dive, then I have an extremely low tolerance for bad props, because nothing is more disappointing than finishing the shot, getting back to the hotel or the Airbnb or home, looking at your footage, and it's all jello-y and crappy, and you've lost it. When I'm flying for fun, if I can see vibration in the FPV video, or if I can hear that like sound that tells you you've got, you know, like normally you spool up your props and they're just like whee, and you're like, yeah, and then sometimes you throttle up and it's just like and you're like, oh, I got to change my props. If you're, you know, you don't want to smoke a motor, you don't want to ruin your video, but I'll let him get a little chewed up. Like if the tip is broken off of any prop, I'm gonna replace that. If the edges are a little chewed up, don't really care. That's about where I'm at. Durzo FPV, thanks for donating $2 to Nightbot. Nightbot works real hard. Penguins Can Fly, thank you for €5. Would it be possible to use 20 amp ESCs on 3 arms and a 30 amp ESC on the 4th arm? You totally can. The question is, it never hurts to have an ESC that's overrated. The ESC is just going to be a little heavier, but it's going to work fine. So, there you go. Archimedes says more quadcopter sounds. We're doing we're going to do a mega cut one of these days of me making quadcopter sounds. Looking forward to it. James, what survey am I? James, put a link to your survey. I'll pimp that out for you. I don't know what you're talking about, but for you, James, I'll do it. Yeah, David Skadoosh says, well, if you're flying with Zong, you change props if they get a gerbil bite. Zong is the owner of HQ Props. Yeah. And he is known for sending gigantic boxes of props to pilots who are sponsored by him. Yeah, if you've got the Zong hookup, then you just change but you still, it's kind of annoying to have to take the screws off, take the nuts off. I was using Eachine Wizard props, says ATF 2099, and they spin themselves apart at the hub. Is that good or bad? Well, obviously that's bad. If your props are disintegrating at the hub, then I wonder if you're over tightening the prop nuts. You want the props tight enough that the nut doesn't come loose in flight, even if you turtle mode, but no tighter than that or you could shatter the hub. Also, if you're using, some people who have their props shattering are using Loctite. Loctite dissolves the plastic. Don't use Loctite on your prop nut. I know that sounds dumb to people who already know the answer, but we're going to give a quick shout out here to this survey being done by one of the mods on my Discord, James. He is asking about props in versus props out. I guess I'll go ahead and answer it. Props in versus props out. Mostly I do props in out of laziness. What's your main style of flying? Freestyle. What made you choose this rotation? Laziness. That's just the way I always did it, and I don't like change. Oh, you're not going to let me see the responses? Damn it. All right, I could also submit another response. Okay. How do you recommend to start an FPV business? Simon Stearns. Every single person, everybody who has started a business started with an idea that they wanted to realize in the world. It's like if you were to say, how do you recommend recording a music album? Well, the first thing you have to do is have music that you want to put into the world. If you don't already have, you know, like a song you want to record and you want people to hear and listen to, you're getting ahead of yourself. How do you start an FPV business? What is the thing that you think the world is lacking that you are passionate about providing? If you don't have an answer to that question, then I think you're going to really struggle. That's a little bit idealistic. The most successful FPV business, though, will be you seeing something that people want, that they're not getting, that you are passionate about providing. I say that's a little bit idealistic because, like, not every job has to be your dream and your passion. Maybe you say, like, you know, I guess I'm going to be working somewhere, may as well be an FPV. I'm going to try and start a business. Fair enough. So you're going to be like, okay, I guess I'm going to start a store. Okay, I guess you could go for it. But anytime you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, it's going to be so much work. And your chances of success are so small that it's better if it's something you're truly passionate about, because that's going to get you through. And then even if you fail, you'll have done something you're passionate about and you believe in. And whereas if you're like, I guess I'm going to start a new store. Okay, I guess I need a warehouse. And I guess I'm going to stock some inventory and try to sell it. Oh no, Mike, I didn't make any money and now I lost a bunch of money and I'm out of business. What a waste. So, yeah, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? How do you start any business? Step 1, identify your market. Thank you, Mike Bergman. Step 1, identify your market. Who is your customer? What do they need that they're not getting and that you are going to give them? That's the first step of starting any business. Phantom FPV, very good to see you. I haven't seen you in the chat in a while, man. How are you doing? Very good to see you. Glad you're here. Durzo FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Based on your video about music, are you saying I can choose any song I want and have it pay the owner with ad revenue? Durzo is referring to the video I made about how I used licensed music in my freestyle video. Sort of, Durzo. The song has to be part of the Content ID system. So there are some bands and music producers who have not chosen to be part of Content ID. I think Metallica is one. I think Tool is one. I'm pretty sure Rob Zombie is another, because I wanted to use a Rob Zombie song in my freestyle and I couldn't. So there are some bands that have explicitly opted out of Content ID. If you use their content, they can give a copyright strike against your channel and there's nothing you can do about it. Most popular music is in Content ID, and if you use it, then it'll just say, we're claiming this video, and you're fine. The other thing is, there are bands who are just so small that they're not part of Content ID. Independent bands, a lot of electronic music is this way. It's not in Content ID because it's just out there on somebody's SoundCloud. If you use that, and they're not in Content ID, then they can copy strike you later. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that the song is in Content ID, and then you probably are not going to get a copy strike. Phantom FPV, you've been busy. I bet you have. You're a hard-working man. Yeah, people ask, how do you start a YouTube channel? And I'm like there's guys out there like Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is so cool. Mr. Beast is one of the top YouTubers, and he's got YouTube figured out. There's people out there. There's people out there who say, you want to know how to make a successful YouTube channel? I'll tell you. And you look at their channel and they have 10,000 subscribers. And I'm like, no, thank you. Mr. Beast has 56, 60 million subscribers. I think he's figured it out. And there's people out there who have a lot of subscribers who they've figured out what works for them, but maybe they haven't generalized it. But I feel like Mr. Beast has actually kind of cracked the code. I've been watching some videos about what he does and how he makes. He could just start a channel tomorrow, and in 3 months he'd have 300,000 subscribers. He's just cracked the code. Most people haven't done that, though. Most people, if they want to start a YouTube channel, they need my advice is find content that you want to make and that you will enjoy making, even if nobody ever watches it, because chances are nobody's ever going to watch it. So you may as well just love making it, and hopefully someday you break through and people watch it. And I feel the same way about starting a business. If you're going to start a business, you probably haven't cracked the code of how to just make a successful business. So since your business is probably going to fail, you should at least do something you love doing and enjoy doing. Now, wouldn't it be better to just crack the code and to make a successful business? Well, it depends. Because I've seen this happen. Like, I've talked to people about what I should do differently on my YouTube channel to get more views. And they say things like, here's how you should decide what content you're going to make. And I'm like, but I don't want to make that content. And then I don't. Like, if I used clickbait thumbnails and clickbait titles on every one of my videos, I would get more views, but I don't want to do that. If I focus grouped all of my content, if I looked at what keywords were trending and made content, now I'm more of a YouTuber than an FPV pilot. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So maybe you just want to make the content you want to make, or make the business you want to make, and maybe it'll fail. But at least you'll have a good time while you're losing money. Yeah. It's tricky. It's tricky. Like, obviously, if you're starting a business, you want it to succeed. Not every business is viable. If you really want to be successful, you have to start by determining whether your business is even viable. And then if it's not viable, don't do it. Because it's not a business at that point, it's a hobby. I know a lot of people who like to start businesses, but if you look at what they're doing, they're not actually running it like a business. They have an expensive hobby. And that's fine too. Anyway. We are coming up on the end of the stream. 7 minutes left. Aaron Ciati is going to be streaming at 3. Thank you, Ciati, for coming on the stream and chatting with me. I hope you have a great stream. So you can start posting that link. Ciati, you don't need to wait for me to shout you out, just for the record. You can always start posting your link at about, quarter till, 10 till. Obviously, if I forget to shout you out, by all means, just keep posting it. I feel really like, I don't know what, I think about this a lot. It's so unfair that there are people out there who have cracked the code of how to be successful at YouTube or at business. There are people out there who know. It's like when I was talking to James, the guy I'm making this film with, and he said, okay, if you want to get on Netflix, here's what you do. And he laid out like a list of 10 things. And then at the end, step 10 is you get on Netflix. I was like, how do you know this? It's like, this is what you do. It's so unfair that there's people out there that know if you want to make a successful YouTube channel, here's what you do. They've cracked the code. If you want to make a successful business, here's what you do. They've cracked the code. It's so unfair, right? And here, like, people like, I'm not going to pick on myself. I've somehow managed to be successful. But I haven't cracked the code. I have a successful YouTube channel. It pays my bills. I haven't cracked the code. I couldn't do it again. I doubt I could do it again. You got guys like Ciati who are freaking grinding live streams. He's growing. I guarantee you that whatever Ciati is doing is 30% as efficient as it could be if he actually knew what he was doing. If you were to hand Ciati's channel over to Mr. Beast, suddenly his growth rate would triple or quadruple. So unfair. That's all I got. Just pick on Ciati for a minute. It's just so unfair. Why can't we all? Why can't we all? Ciati says cracking the code is selling out. That's tough, man. I think what you mean is that cracking the code means you have to care more about, you have to care at least as much about being a YouTuber as you do about the content that you're making. I think you're right about that. You have to care at least as much, maybe more, but at least as much about being successful as a YouTuber as you do about the content you're making. It's true. Maybe you don't want to make that trade-off. Coming up on the end of the stream. Oh my God. How do you even say this guy's name? It's not English script. It's not Western script. Nicholas Vasilakis really wants to know about the GEP-RC Mark IV HD. Does it have the same problem as the analog with the connection between the ESC and the flight controller? Nicholas, they said they fixed that, and it was only some pre-production ones that went out with that problem. I would just try to take a look. Can we just look and see somehow? Like, can we dive in here? I really don't know. I don't think we're going to be able to see, but let's try. They said they fixed it, though, dude. Can we see a wire connecting this flight controller to the ESC? Oh, my God, what a mess. Yeah, bingo. There it is. The picture shows a wire. See it right there? Right there. The picture shows a wire, so presumably they fixed it. Boom. Question answered. Hakan Narson, just bought my Xylo kit with a Caddx Vista and a Radio Master. How should I mount the receiver? Mount the receiver on top of the Vista. Use some double-sided tape as strain relief and mount it on top of the Vista with a zip tie around it. Make sure the zip tie is not pressing on any of the buttons, either on the Vista or on the receiver. Why do they not build frame arms thicker? Asks Baskin FPV. I always break them. Buy a different frame. Alrighty, guys. Danny Reamer, thanks for a €5 super chat. Michael Hill, thanks for a $2 super chat. I think we're caught up on super chats. And we're coming to the end of the stream. I'll be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with another live stream. And 6 p.m. on Tuesday with the news with Blunty. And all my normal content throughout the week. Ciati, have a great stream, my friend. Any HD audio options for Caddx or Sharkbite? No, Scott Stites. None. Nope. The DJI FPV drone transmits audio, but the air unit and the Vista don't. So maybe someday in the future, but not today. Do I use any beard products? No, sir. This is just, it's all natural, baby. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Ciati, have a great stream. Everybody head on over to Ciati's stream and watch him for a couple hours. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.